After Syracuse basketball misses out on Dakota Leffew, what do the Orange still need?
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and you are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And on today's show, Syracuse misses out on Dakota Leffew over the weekend. So now, what do the Orange still need in the transfer portal? Now, as a reminder, players have until May 1st, which is Wednesday of this week, to enter their name in the portal, but they do not have to commit by said date. The Orange, I feel, still have needs. They need a scoring guard, they need another big man, and they can really use another knockdown shooter. And we're going to break it all down here on this show. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. So when first analyzing the remaining needs for Syracuse, I want to kind of go back to the very beginning of the offseason when we discussed what Syracuse actually needed to do, right? And have they done that so far? So they've gotten size, which is going to help their rebounding problem that they've had for a while. I believe I charted it the last 5 years. They've been the bottom in the ACC in rebounding margin. And they did that by getting Eddie Lampkin, the big center out of Colorado, who averaged 10 points and 7 rebounds last season, actually rebounds better on the offensive side than the defensive side. They've also gotten Jair Davis, who rebounds at a similar rate to Malik Brown. So pretty solid on that front there. He can also score. And they got Donnie Freeman coming in, number 6 overall player on the ESPN 100 list. He should help with his size and his rebounding ability as well. I believe he was second in this high school league in rebounding. So they got that. They've also gotten experience, and some of that is by default with the returners all becoming now upperclassmen. But everyone really they've gotten so far in terms of in the transfer portal, right? Jair Davis, Eddie Lampkin, Jaquan Carlos, all upperclassmen. This team really needed experience. They got experience. So good on Syracuse for that so far. And they've also gotten a true floor general in Jaquan Carlos. Shout out Jaquan Carlos. He led his conference in assists. He once had 19 assists in a game. So they've gotten that too, which is something that Syracuse has been lacking for a very long time. Someone who can really just be a steady presence at the point guard position. Doesn't need to be the greatest scorer in the world, but knows how to distribute. But when we look at what Syracuse really needs here, let's start off with a scoring guard. Okay, they can use a scoring guard. They missed out on Dakota Leffew, who would have provided them that. He was a 4-star transfer from Mount St. Mary's. He's off to Georgia now. Good for him, closer to home and everything. But when you look at their guards, they got Jaquan Carlos, J.J. Starling, Chance Westry, Elijah Moore, and Kyle Cuff. When I look at that guard rotation, I think, okay, it's probably about average compared to the ACC. It does have some upside if Chance Westry becomes anything. We don't know what he's going to be if he lives up to where he was ranked in high school. But overall, when I look at it, it's missing that dynamic scorer besides J.J. Starling. They got Starling who can create his own shot, put the ball in the hole. But Jaquan Carlos is really good at passing, and he's a solid defender. They got Chance Westry as a complete wild card. Elijah Moore is a low-end 4-star who can shoot. Great shooter. That's what he's known to be, apparently. But he's not someone who's really that dynamic playmaker at the guard position. And then Kyle Cuff is more like a defender. Defender in spurts. That's where he's best at. Because look at the guard position right now. Judah Mintz left. They obviously weren't going to find someone 1-for-1 for Judah Mintz. But, they've gotten Jaquan Carlos, who's a true point guard. They need another scorer to pair with him. they need another scorer there in the guard position. They don't really have one besides J.J. Starling that we can depend on. Chance Westry, I mentioned wild card, but more known as a passer. We've heard about his passing being great on the No Destination podcast from Naheem McLeod. Who are some guys now? Who are some scoring guards that are available? Let's start with the big one, shall we? He's in the thumbnail. Kadary Richmond. He averaged 16 points per game last year at Seton Hall. We're all pretty familiar with him. He was at Syracuse a few years ago before he transferred, mainly because he wasn't going to start over Joe Girard in his sophomore season. So he goes to Seton Hall, and he's had a pretty productive career with them. I believe they won the NIT championship. He's available. Now, I've seen rumors of him being connected to St. John's. I don't know how truthful it really is. I haven't heard if Syracuse is interested in Kadary Richmond at all, but I think it would certainly be promising. He's a combo guard. I think it works out. Just saying. I think it's a great option. And this is now a time where I'm going to do a quick side note here. There is an account on Twitter, which I'm going to put right here. Okay? Don't listen to a word he says. Okay? I don't know what Kadary Richmond's NIL asking price is, but I can promise you that dude, not an insider. Do not believe a word he says. Just trust me on this one, okay? Moving on, I think another solid addition for Syracuse would be, he's got a great name. He's from Miami. Wooga Poplar, averaged 13 points per game, another combo guard. In around the top 100 of the transfer portal right now. He's a 4-star overall. So, again, I'm going to do more. I don't think Syracuse is done here. So, I'm purposely not giving everything on everyone in case someone were to actually commit. And now this really speaks for the third person here. Ken Evans Jr. from Jackson State. He was the SWAC Player of the Year. He's a 4-star transfer on On3 and 24/7 Sports. He's actually ranked a lot higher than Dakota Leffew. And he wasn't someone on the radar. I believe I saw him connected to West Virginia. He had some sort of visit at another school fall through. He averaged 19 points per game at Jackson State. That's where he was originally at. Ken Evans Jr. And let's just say Eddie Lampkin posted something about him on his Instagram story, and he followed a couple people related to Syracuse. I believe he followed Dan Engelstad, who's the assistant head coach now for the Orange. So if something were to happen with Kev Evans Jr., if he takes a visit or whatever, or obviously commits, I'll do more homework on him, so to speak. But it's just a name to monitor. Keep an eye on him. Maybe there's something there that we don't know. He was never really publicly connected to Syracuse at all. He's a very promising transfer. I would obviously love it. He is certainly a scoring guard, which is what this team needs. But I don't really know how feasible it is at this moment. So those are the three guys. Kadary Richmond, obviously, with that Syracuse connection. Wooga Poplar from Miami, so there's that ACC connection. And then there's Kevin Evans Jr. His story was retweeted by Eddie Lampkin. So who knows, right? It's just the world we live in with social media these days, with players trying to recruit and everything, which is a great thing. I love it. But, we don't know if anything's official until it actually is. So, in summary, Syracuse needs a scoring guard. They got 5 guards who can all do something different, right? They got Jaquan Carlos who can pass, J.J. Starling who can score, Chance Westry who can pass, Elijah Moore who's a shooter, and they got Kyle Cuff who can defend. They need another scorer there at the guard position after missing out on Dakota Leffew. Now, coming up, talked about it a little bit on the William Patterson mini podcast. Syracuse needs another big man. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that. But there is just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with your friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. Unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes. cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges, a ton, including their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot Panico machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the streaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Welcome back, everyone, into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and we are discussing what the Orange still need in the transfer portal. Obviously, players have until May 1st to enter it. They could certainly use a scoring guard to complement the 5 guards that they currently have on their roster, because only really one of them, J.J. Starling, is able to create his own shot and really get a bucket when you need a bucket. So I believe they need another scorer there. Next, we've already discussed this a little bit, but I think Syracuse needs another big man. I think they need another big man here. Getting Eddie Lampkin was huge, right? They get a starting caliber center, which was a huge need for size and rebounding. They get Eddie Lampkin from Colorado. And now Naheem McLeod is the backup, which is solid. Naheem McLeod is a solid backup that can play 10 to 15 minutes and play really good defense. He's 7'4". He's a great shot blocker because of it. Last year, he averaged about 2 blocks a game in less than 15 minutes a night. He's a great shot blocker, but they need another one. And this is because Naheem McLeod has had a couple injuries in college that have been somewhat severe, right? He played not even half of last season. Then he had a foot injury, missed the rest of the year, and he said that he was playing with that foot injury even before it was diagnosed. So yeah, even though he's the backup, injuries happen. This is someone who's been injured before. So I think you need a third string center. You need a third. Because you don't want to leave it up to chance. That's what it really comes down to. And I don't mean Chance Westry. I mean, you don't want to leave it. A plan is not hope. Right? Hope is not a plan. Okay? You don't want to hope that Eddie Lampkin and Naheem McLeod stay healthy so you're fine, right? You need to get someone else in there. And it doesn't need to be the biggest name in the world. It doesn't need to be someone who's top 300 in the transfer portal overall. You don't need that. Because William Patterson's in it, obviously. Peter Carey went over to Siena, so you don't have a third center. Like I saw Norchet Omier from Miami enter the portal, and that would be obviously great. But it's not feasible. I don't think he would come. And B, it's not what they need. They just need a depth center. So pick one. Pick one. Depth. You need depth. Honestly, I said it, I believe, on the William Patterson mini podcast. A Peter Carey type would honestly suffice. You just need a body. I think that's what it really ultimately comes down to. You got Eddie Lampkin, who's a solid starting center, going to give you 25 to 30 minutes a night. You got Naheem McLeod, who can give you 10 to 15 minutes as your backup center. They both complement each other well because Eddie Lampkin can pass, he can rebound a little bit, he can score, but he's not the greatest defender. Naheem McLeod is a very solid defender, but not really great at anything else really, but he's a very good defender and can rebound at obviously 7'4". Just one more, perhaps a developmental project. I don't even know if there's anyone in high school that's still available. Maybe if there's like a 3-star center available, you can get him to be your third string center. Someone. You just need a body. Just don't go into the year with only 2 starting centers, because if you remember last season, I know they technically had 3, but because they had Naheem McLeod, they had Peter Carey, and they had Manir Hema. But what happened when Naheem McLeod went down, right? You just need one more guy. I'm not asking for the role here. I'm not asking for a big fish. One more body. Now, coming up, I think Syracuse can also use another three-point shooter because when I look at their current roster, they don't really have too many projected snipers. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all in an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. And hey, Syracuse football fans, myself included, right? Obviously a fan. I know there's optimism, and I'm optimistic too. Well, if you're one of those people that believe that Syracuse is going to win 10-plus games, I got the bet for you. Plus 4,500 to win the ACC, because why not? You're already confident that this team is going to win double-digit games. Take a flyer. Will Syracuse win the ACC next season? You can bet it right now on FanDuel. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. I was once trying to buy a last-minute ticket for a New York Mets game last year, and it was frustrating. I couldn't see the view from my seat, and the deals weren't that good at all. That's why I now use Gametime. Gametime is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. One game that I'm thinking about attending is Mets-Marlins down in Miami on May 19th, and I can get in for as little as $5. I just went to the Gametime app, I searched up Mets tickets, and the deal popped up right away. You can do the same with any team of your choosing, including the Syracuse Mets. That's right. It was so easy to find. I was actually at a Syracuse game on Sunday, and Syracuse is at home on May 14th, and you get in for $5. You get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Welcome back, everyone, into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and on today's episode, we are going over what the Orange still need in the transfer portal. I should have mentioned up the top, Syracuse has 3 scholarship spots available on its roster after missing out on Dakota Leffew. We talked about how they need a scoring guard, someone who can, at least average, 10 points a game. They need another big man, just a depth player, and now they need a 3-point shooter. So I kind of in my head, when I was building this out, thought to myself, who are the players on Syracuse right now that are projected to probably shoot above 30% from the 3-point line and will play at least 10 minutes a night? Okay, so 30% from 3 and 10 minutes. And the guys that I came up with were Chris Bell. I think you can bank that one in. He was, I believe, 3rd in the ACC in 3-point shooting last year, above 40%. He's about as knocked down as it gets. And he's going to probably play over 10-plus minutes, I'd imagine, considering he's going to start next year. You got Jaquan Carlos, who last year at Hofstra saw 34% from 3. It's not a slam dunk that he'll shoot above 30%, but I imagine he will, and he'll definitely play above 10-plus minutes a night. And you have J.J. Starling, who only shot 32% from deep last year, but he was better in the second half of the season. It took him some time to really find his shot. So I'd imagine that probably will get to closer to 34, 35%. And then that's really it. That's it. Yeah, Donnie Freeman, I know he's got a shot to him, but it's impossible to say if it'll be 30%. I know he'll definitely play at least 10 minutes, but I don't know if he'll hit 30% from three. I hope he does. And then you got Elijah Moore, who I'd imagine he'd hit over 30%, but I don't think he'll play over 10 minutes. That's the point. You got to hit both requirements. And it's tough with freshmen to really project what they're going to do. Again, hope is not a plan. You need more certainty on this roster here when it comes to the three-point shooting. So just in more context here, Syracuse was 11th in the ACC in three-point percentage, and that's with Chris Bell on the team. They had Chris Bell, who was about third in the ACC by himself, and Syracuse couldn't finish even in the top 10 in their own conference with an elite shooter. You need more shooting. You can never have enough. Think about all the sports out there in college. What's like the ultimate mismatch in football, right? Like quarterback, I guess, but you got Georgia against that crummy low Division I team mid-major. Georgia's going to win by 50. But in college basketball, that's not necessarily the case. And the reason really for it is shooting. It's shooting. Right? Syracuse last year beat North Carolina in the Dome in part because they went 8 for 17 from the three-point line. It's not overwhelmingly crazy, but they took 17 shots. They made 8 of them. They lost to Georgia Tech because I believe they were 4 for 25, a team that they were so much better than. They were much better than Georgia Tech last year, and they lost in their building because they couldn't hit a three-point shot. You need shooting. And I've mentioned this one before, but the NCAA tournament, when Jack Goke hit 10 threes for Oakland, and Oakland went 15 of 31 from the three-point line against Kentucky, and they won. They won. Right? Think about Kentucky with all that NIL and all those 5 stars and everything that they have down there, all the resources they have. Jack Goke hits 10 threes. Their season's over. That's college basketball. So when you look at Syracuse and you look up and down their roster, who are those guys? I'm not saying hit 10 threes like Goke did. But who are some dependable three-point shooters on this team that for 100% certainty that they are at least going to shoot 30% and hopefully closer to 35, even higher than that? You got Chris Bell. You got Jaquan Carlos, who will be above 30 in all likelihood. And you got J.J. Starling, and then the freshman. I think you need more. I think you need at least one more. And the good news is that you can kind of kill that with 2 birds with 1 stone. It can be any position. I don't care what position it is. You can get a forward. You can get a guard. Even if the third center you bring in can shoot, cool. You need more. Now, as far as I want to go back to the first topic when we talked about how Syracuse needed a scoring guard here. Well, Ken Evans Jr. from Jackson State shot nearly 40% from 3 last season. And I know it's a mid-major conference. The three-point line doesn't change. Ken Evans Jr. would be perfect. Kadary Richmond, he can score, not much of a shooter. Wooga Poplar, he can shoot from the three-point line. That's the point. You need more shooting on this team. And we talked about it at the very, very beginning of the offseason. They didn't have enough shooters last year, and they need more because it's the one thing. It's the only thing really in basketball that can mitigate a gap in talent. It can mitigate a gap in talent. You think Oakland is as talented as Kentucky? No. Was Syracuse as talented as North Carolina when they came to the Dome? I know they're in the ACC, but no. One team didn't make the NCAA tournament. The other was a 1 seed. The more shooting, the better. So in conclusion, Syracuse can use another scoring guard. They can use a depth big man, and they can certainly use another three-point shooter on this team Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this video, click that like button. And if you really liked it, subscribe to the channel and turn on those notifications so you know right away when I'm dropping the next podcast. I think I'm going to start experimenting with dropping episodes that are scheduled, that are supposed to be for Monday, but doing it on Sunday nights. And we'll see how it goes. I just want to test something out. No harm, no foul, no alarm really here. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great night, or have a great morning, or have a great day.